Hi there, it's Katrina from Books and Babies, and I am here to film I guess you could call it kind of an underrated books video. What I did is I just went through and picked all the books that I haven't heard talked about very much on BookTube, at least as of late. These books might have been popular when they first come out, but I thought I would talk about some of my favorite underrated books that maybe you haven't heard of, or you kind of forgot that you were meaning to read it at some point, and now this will be a little good reminder. So all of my books that I've picked are from a wide variety of genres. I have a middle grade, some YA, some adult books, some fantasy, some historical fiction, a little bit of everything. So hopefully there's something that suits everyone's fancy. The first picks I have are, it's a duology by Mary Doria Russell. The first book is The Sparrow, the second book is Children of God. So this is a story about, it's a sci-fi, first off, to start with. It is a story about a group of people who are going into space. They're going on a mission to a new planet that they're hoping will be good for human life, and they are funded by Jesuit mission, so a religious society. And so it's just all about them in this new planet and how it is different and similar to our own planet here on Earth. So that one was very good. It wasn't what I was expecting at all, but it had a lot of deep moments. There's a lot of good character development in it. And I do recommend that one. It is an adult book. There are definitely adult topics. There are some trigger warnings for, they don't go into explicitly, but they do talk about it, and it is a major character point that you will want to look into if you have trigger warnings. I don't want to spoil the second book by telling you what the trigger warnings are, but if that's an issue for you, I would look those up before reading those. The next one I have is The Lost Sisterhood by Anne Fortier. I believe this is an adult book. Yeah, it's adult. And this one is about the Amazon women, and it's just a story about a woman discovering her own history and looking into the Amazon women and what they were and all of the cool things they did. So that's one of my favorites. It's one that I often recommend to my friends who like fantasy but not super high fantasy. This is more of urban. The main character is more in our everyday life, but there is fantastical elements in it, in that Amazon women are a myth to most people. The next book I don't have with me because I borrowed it to my friends. I'm going to try and put it on the screen. I don't know if I can, but it's called The Courtesan. Not the Courtesan, The Courtesan. I always say Courtesan in my head, but it's Courtesan. And it's a historical fiction. It takes place in Japan, I believe. It's over in Asia, and it's about a woman who grew up, and she grew up in a whorehouse, and she escaped it, and how she's trying to grow. It's kind of a coming of age story. It starts when she's young and it ends when she's a much older woman. It's a good story. There's lots of things happening in everyday life. There's war that's coming. There's romance and what she goes through her life and all those kind of things. So that's a great one if you like historical fiction. This next book is I believe it's YA. It's kind of a younger YA. It's a book that it's kind of old, as you can see. I picked it up from the Scholastic Book Fairs when I was in probably 5th or 6th grade. But it's called The Cry of the Icemark by Stuart Hill, and it is a trilogy. There are 2 books after this. I personally think this first one's the best, but to each their own. And it is about a young girl, 13-year-old, who she, in the beginning of the book, ends up having to go to war and lead her country as a 13-year-old against a big empire who has not lost in the history of the empire. It is a fantasy book, so there are fantastical elements. There are other creatures that she has allies with that are not in the real world. So you get to see all those cool creatures. Her biggest ally is one of the greatest creatures. They are known for being strong, and they are very loyal. I won't spoil who they are. It comes in pretty early, but they're one of the best parts of the series for sure. And then finally, this last book is a middle grade book. This was a personal favorite of mine when I was younger. It's called Click Here to Find Out How I Survived 7th Grade, and it's by Denise Vega. And it's pretty much just a coming of age. This one is definitely for a younger crowd. So if you have any friends or kids or siblings that are in middle school, or maybe like 4th or 5th grade going into it, this is a great book. I read it so many times when I was younger. It's easy to connect with. It's just a girl. She is writing in a diary, but on her computer. So she's writing these little messages, and there's little, it's called Click Here because she writes a little blog post just for herself in her own diary, and the struggles that she goes through, some love life, friends, and then she has some bullies and she has to deal with that. So it's a great little story for middle age, and I think it's still great now, but it's definitely aimed more for middle grade years. So I hope some of those recommendations were intriguing to you. If you have any other recommendations that you think I should read that are kind of underrated books that are your favorites, or if you have read any of these that you also think are great, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again later. Bye.